The zone of freaking out is also, though, the zone of potential. And this is one way we can reframe it to recognize that when we make the asks that are so big that we have no idea about what they might say. We might get a yes even to that bigger ask and surprise ourselves. And in that way, the zone of freaking out is where all the potential is.
Welcome to Working Women Mentor, the podcast that delivers mentorship in every conversation. Each episode, we meet remarkable women who share the real moments, challenges, and breakthroughs that shape their journeys. These are stories that inspire, empower, and remind us of what is possible. I'm your host, Rainey Alpers, and I cannot wait for you to meet today's guest. Let's jump in and uncover your next mentor moment. Hey everyone, welcome back to Working Women Mentor. I'm your host, Rainey Alpers, and in today's episode, we are going to ask like an auctioneer, ask for more and get it, because we get to meet the incredible Bondi. She's spending time with us today. She's a communications catalyst, a speaker, and an author of the book that I just mentioned. She coaches VC-backed founders, executives, and ambitious professionals to speak powerfully. She helped Rio de Janeiro win the right to host the Summer Olympics, and she's helped countless leaders secure hundreds of millions in decisions and resource. A hobbyist fundraising auctioneer, Dia's TEDx talk was selected as a TED Editor's Pick, showcasing how to make the kind of asks that can change everything. And this is what we're all about. Those moments that can change everything, like mentor moments. I cannot wait for you to meet Dia. We had such an incredible conversation. And I think leaving this episode, you're going to feel empowered and you're going to understand how to structure the ask, what book to go and buy and read, because it's incredible. I've actually read it twice. It's that good. And I've recommended it and purchased it for other people. And everything about her method is something practical and easy and something we can all do more of. So I welcome you to this podcast. Let's jump in and meet Dia. Here we go. Dia Bondi, welcome to Working Women Mentor. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
So happy to be here. I'm in California and I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it is always cool and fresh, except the last 3 days we got hit with like 100-degree weather. And I'm telling you, I don't know how everyone who lives in the hot zones in this country survives. Weather broke today, and so I'm feeling like a new woman.
You're feeling cool and calm and collected and ready for this interview, right?
I'm feeling fresh. Anyway, yeah.
I love that. Dia, would you introduce yourself to our audience? Because some of us haven't met you yet.
Sure. I'm Dia Bondi. I am a longtime leadership communications coach. I've been 24 years helping leaders and founders speak powerfully at really critical, high decision point moments. And a few years ago, I do all of that work through coaching and training and speaking. And I had the great privilege, for example, you want to talk about high stakes moments. I helped Rio de Janeiro win the right to host the 2016 Olympics and worked in the Olympic movement a handful of times. Yeah, that's been a really lovely experience. And because I'm in the Bay Area, I work a lot with folks in tech, but I am industry agnostic. I work with a lot of founders as well who are sort of right at Series B and maybe a little bit beyond, and having to really learn to speak as a CEO, to elevate their own status in their own business so that they can speak powerfully in a way that is about their leadership and not about project management. And then I went on sabbatical a handful of years ago just for fun. And I went to auctioneering school for literally an adventure and turned
I love that. Love it. Literally love it.
Turned that little adventure into an impact hobby, came back to the Bay Area and started doing fundraising auctioneering for women-led nonprofits and nonprofits benefiting women and girls. And it turns out that everything I was learning was really useful to how we think about asking for more and getting it in the stories that we tell in our businesses and in our careers and lives. And so I wrote a book called Ask Like an Auctioneer, and I speak on how to help folks, ambitious professionals, ask for more and get it.
I love it. You make it sound so easy, all of that in a nutshell. I know that communication is your language. You've learned how to master this and to teach people how to really recognize their power. And I'm wondering, when is a time in your life early on that you realized that there was that voice there, that you had that ability to speak up and ask out, change something for you?
I think I've been doing it my whole life and didn't really realize it. when it hit me, the idea that if we asked like auctioneers do, which is about asking in order to get a no, not in order to get a yes, because as auctioneers, we can't actually sell anything until we get somebody in the room to say, nope, I won't pay $5,500 to it. That no is great news for me. It lets me go, maximize the potential of that ask. I'm willing to get a no, and in fact, need to get a no to know that the thing that I end up getting a yes for was the biggest possible yes I could get. And when that idea hit me and I went on this journey to develop those concepts and turn it into a book now, my husband reminded me that, hey, Dia, this isn't actually new for you.
Interesting. So
And I was like,
he
what?
recognized it and brought it up.
And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, remember when my my early mentor, I was really his apprentice. But I tell the story in my TEDx and in the book. But I remember standing in my kitchen and asking him if he would take me on as his apprentice. And I had no business doing it. I was like, who do you think you are? It was a who do you think you are moment. But I kind of forgot, you know? And then I remember I look at like the house that my husband and I live in today. Absolutely, who do you think you are making an offer on a house that was literally 40% more than we thought we could afford? And my realtor was like unembarrassed about making the request. And I just went for it. And it was sort of a longer story, but we got a hard no in the beginning. And 2 months later, they came back and said, come on. Well, that home has been a major unlock in our own wealth building in our family. I mean, I can find time and again moments where I've looked back at my life and said, oh, yeah, I've had a lot of who do you think you are moments, and I was willing to do that. And I don't know why.
Oh, I was about to say it's interesting because it does definitely sounds like a pattern. It most certainly is a pattern for you. I love that your husband recognized it, but some of our behavior is learned, right? Like you just started doing this so young, it sounds like, and you've continued this path. So when you decided to improve some of these asking skills by learning to be an auctioneer, I know you said you were doing this for really a pet project, if you will, and to help with charities and just to try it out. But take us through that experience because most people hear auctioneer school and like I have that voice in my head, like they got just that really fast rhythm voice when I think of an auctioneer. But what was that like for you?
So for one, yeah, that thing you're talking about, $100 but
Yeah.
now two, give
Mhm.
me two, my $200 but now three, like that.
Yes.
That's called a chant, and I don't really have one because
You sure did pretty well just
yeah,
now.
but that's not actually how I run my auctions. I wish I could show off in that way. But because I'm in the fundraising auctioneering space, like I'm making direct requests for pledges and folks are they're not professional bidders. They're not going to buy tractors and cattle and hogs and all the things that you would at a regular sort of what you think of as a cattle auction. And I didn't actually go in order to learn how to make asks. I went because I was making good on a threat I had made at a dinner table 10 years before. We were all talking about things we would do. And I said, you know what I would learn to do? Because I had been asked to be the auctioneer for my fundraiser for my children's preschool. And I was like,
Okay.
that was fun. And we were all making threats. I'd jump out of an airplane. Oh, I'd paddle across out to the Channel Islands. Oh, I would go to auction. Like I would actually learn how to be an auctioneer. So I went literally just to learn something weird and offbeat. And I didn't really know why I was going, except that I wanted to get out of my own little comfort zone and learn something weird and offbeat. And I did. And I came back, and the challenge wasn't how do I help people ask for more? The challenge was, can I actually keep track of my numbers in front of a room? The challenge was, could I be in front of a big audience and actually
Like
execute against this
engage.
and like, could
Yeah.
I actually
Yeah.
do this? Like, that's what it was more about. Could I have 500 eyes on me and be able to elegantly pull off these kinds of requests in front of the room? What kind of gown could I wear? It was really more about that. And it wasn't until 30 auctions into it did I realize what I was really learning.
How interesting. And just to be in that room and create that uncomfortable experience that you then became so comfortable in. And then you blended this with your coaching and teaching style is like whole next level. But I have to ask you in that room, just for the person listening who says, okay, she gets up there and she does something uncomfortable. She got really great at it. When you're in an auction, there is a pressure. I have to touch on this for a second because if you're sitting there, you're wanting to bid, you're thinking which item am I going to choose, what's important to me. it's a little nerve wracking to know, like, when do I jump in and when do I jump out? And a lot of that is budget and what you're planning on doing. But any tips to these ladies sitting in an audience at an auction, and especially a charity auction? Like, what in the world? Like, how do you handle yourself? What do you do in there?
So I would say have a budget and a plan, number one. And I would also just trust the auctioneer. So I love this question. And the folks who are listening, the women who are listening, I want you to be able to ask like an auctioneer. I want you to design powerful asks that get you better results to help you build the business that you're building, help you advance yourself in your career. And what you're recognizing is that there is somebody on the other side of the table. And when you make an ask, you're exactly right. There is pressure. You are intentionally putting pressure on this situation. And being willing to do that is an issue. Now, on the other side, when we're the receiving end of the asks, we have to be able to tolerate the pressure that is getting put on us as well. So
That's right.
on both sides of the house, we want to have a budget and a plan. So for women who are totally raising your paddle to make donations to or support organizations that you need, one, that you want to support, one is going in with a budget and a plan is really important. Two is recognizing that it is an act of generosity. And if you break your budget and your plan, it's okay, you know?
It's okay.
And then third, to try to have a little bit of fun with it. I think, I talk about asking for more, but I don't use the word negotiation that often. And I think it's because I'm very focused on helping women design a high yield ask, but also the idea of negotiating can really suck the joy out of all of this.
Yeah, because you immediately feel like it's now game on. Well, you feel even more pressure, I think.
Yeah.
And
And all of a sudden it's
you
a competition.
it is. It is. And I love that. So you're focused more on just the ask piece and
Correct.
understanding what is at the table. And I think often we forget that part, right? It's really just about what each of us are trying to accomplish here.
Absolutely. And in that, it is important as an auctioneer, but also important in a fundraiser in that moment to help people say yes to raising their panel, to be able to execute against their budget and the plan that they had for that day. Saying yes can be just as thrilling as making a big ask, to recognize that there is an offer inside of the ask that you make. And when you can identify what that is and deliver it with delight and
Hmm.
curiosity and the joy of seeing if the intersection of what you're asking for and what somebody else wants, it hits them the way you want it to, then this ask becomes a collaboration for us both to get what we want. And it's not about like, give me this deal and you get, et cetera. Give me 10 grand and it's not a tit for tat
It's
kind
not
of.
one sided. Yeah, in
Well,
that
and it's
way.
also not, I don't want folks to think about it in terms of like a transaction. Because, for example, when I started auctioneering, I realized that I might be auctioneering in some cases just asking for direct pledges where people don't buy anything. They just say, yep, I will give $10,000 tonight. And they put their paddle in the air. So I've got to make the case for what are you getting when you just give? And
Right.
and that helped me get really clear about like, oh, when you put your paddle in the air tonight, you are living in alignment with your values. You are
Hmm.
being, right? You are having the impact, creating a legacy for yourself. You are participating in a radical act of generosity with people who have shared values with you. If it is an art auction, for example, I might tell a story about how tonight might be the night you can say you're a collector for the first time because you purchased your first piece of art in support of this organization. So get clear about what the person across the table wants. Sure, they want the explicit value of the thing you might be selling them, but they also might want the accolades of having gone first, being an early
Mm.
adopter. Or the thing that you're going to do with them might be the thing that gives them their very first big win in their new role. So we have to not be shy about letting ourselves tell a better story about what's in it for them in the ask that we're making.
And it's building that story right in front of them. I love that. It's interesting. I've been chatting with some women lately, and the topic is attending auctions for high end handbags and luxury goods, right? Like, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal even recently. And women are just feeling like, one, I'm getting a bargain compared to buying something in the store. And what the bargain is the biggest piece, right? But then the feel of whatever they purchased that they found that they couldn't find anywhere else, maybe. And when I'm hearing people talk about like this love of buying it at auction, what makes them feel good, it seems is yeah, they got the bag and they would have spent money on that anywhere. I'm just using a bag as an example, but it
Sure.
was like how they felt, the win, like the fact that no one else could get this because now it's theirs. It felt very much like a victory on every single description of this. And so I think that's a great point of you are sitting there describing that victory for the other side of the table, right?
Beautiful.
I think that's so fun. It's time for a quick sponsored ad from EMK Skincare. It's my skincare secret I swear by and love it so much. I bought the company. EMK was founded over 30 years ago in Beverly Hills and is crafted from science-backed research of human placenta and the bioidentical properties to placenta found in nature. High-potency, plant-powered formulas with clinically proven ingredients. Anti-aging is just not realistic, but healthy aging skin is. And it's why this brand is loved by dermatologists, plastic surgeons, estheticians for its healing ingredients and reduced downtime after procedures. It's my secret to glowing skin, even on my busiest days, my travel days, and my longest work days. Visit emkskincare.com to sign up for emails and receive 15% off your first purchase. Now back to the episode. So, with the auction piece and understanding what is important to ask for, you're coaching founders when they come to you and they say, Dia, I've got a fundraise, I've got this happening in my business. I don't know how to get there. What's holding them back? Because generally they probably know what to do. They're just not sure how to get to that bottom line. What is that conversation like when you're meeting folks for the first time that need you and your services?
Well, the first thing, yes, here we
They're all
go.
over the board.
Yeah, no. I mean, it depends. It also, raising VC is a very specific kind of journey, and recognizing that most founders and most founders who might be listening right now are bootstrapping. They're going out for that whale of a client that is going to fund their next level up because it's going to bring revenue into the business. So I'm just going to say, like, I mean, I work with a lot of executives at large tech companies that use, for example, large tech events as sales events. They don't call them that, but let's be real, like CES, Dreamforce, Apple World, like these are sales events. Okay. So let me just start with this. One, I get really clear on what the purpose of their voice is so that they can speak in a way that feels aligned to who they are. One of the things that can hamstring us all the time is to think that we need to sound like somebody else, and we don't. What we need to do is double down on our unique voice in the world. So we do an exercise around identifying what I call a purpose platform statement, which is, are you a peacemaker? Are you a bridge to difficult concepts? Are you an earthquake? I have a client who says he's a volcano who builds land masts for others. This is not a publishable idea, but it is the way in which we can think about the lens through which you develop the scripts that you tell. So for this gentleman, it sounds kind of silly, but I do it with very senior level people. This person understands that when he comes to a product script, when he comes to pitch his ideas, he's looking for places where, like, where am I getting to be the volcano that I know I am? How do I set, what is the way in which I open this story that shows how my role in the world is to create landmass for others, meaning like help other people take on, and he's in financial services, interestingly. So we get it clear on a purpose platform state. One of my clients right now, currently, we just identified his as he's a first ascender. So we're like, okay, when you have to go set up your story, where are you being that first ascender? And when he says here, here, and here, that's where his voice comes alive. That's where he goes like, ooh, I can see there's a way for me to be me inside of this story. So that's number one, purpose. And it's not about job, it's about your role in the world. There are people listening right now, I'm sure, who are like, no matter what I do, I can't not be a coach. Or no matter what I do, I'm always the one to help bottom line the ideas that are flying around in our boardroom. Okay, great. That's a hint to like how you do what you do, no matter what it is that you're doing. You know what I mean?
And it's like, that's where you just said, that's where they find that excitement. And that's the fun part for them, right? I mean,
Totally.
that's where that success can come in. I think just using that exercise will help someone generate an idea of where they feel. What's
Yeah, or
number
like,
two? Like, now I'm interested.
yeah, how to inspire a more powerful story when you speak from who you truly are. So my purpose platform statement, I'll just offer it, is that I am an earthquake here to shift people's perspectives so they can see themselves more powerfully. So when I come to a big story or a big pitch, I have to stop and ask myself, Dia, just be your earthquake. I'm the fun kind of earthquake, not the destructive kind. The kind that makes you go, ooh, did you feel that? you know?
Yeah.
So,
The kind you run from.
exactly, exactly. So that's number one. Number two is that we want to make sure that we're making the right ask of the right people. So it's very easy for us to default to asks around money, for example, when maybe your business right now really needs to find the right person to make an ask that helps elevate your visibility in your market, put you in, break you into a network that matters to things. So that's the next thing that we need to do. And then we need to, while we are setting up our pitches, we're talking about the product and the features or what this, maybe you're a creative and you're doing a campaign pitch, you're talking about the campaign approach and what the outcomes you can create. You have all of that, those pragmatics, but a framework that I really like to help unlock an approach that might feel a little bit have more ease and excitement for folks in it is what I like to call the mirror effect. And it goes
Okay.
like this. It goes like this. I want you, when you think about setting up your next ask, to line out some talking points for yourself that go like this. The mirror effect framework goes like this. I see you see me, and because of that. So I see you means I see you across the table. I see you what matters to you. I see what's important to you. I see where you're trying to go. I see what your desires are. I see what kind of personality you have as a leader. I see you, I see you, I see you. To confirm to the person across the way, across the table, that you're bringing to them something that includes who they are.
I love that. Yes. And right off the bat, like you're starting with it as opposed to starting with your own interest.
100%. I helped a client last month close a $5 million deal using this, which is like we started with, hey, I know that you are a pioneer in your market. Oh, you do? You know that about me? That is how I see myself. Thank you for saying so. You see what I'm
Pat
doing?
on my shoulder. Yes.
Exactly. I see you. Then it is, so once you get through that, then it is, you see me. Okay, let me tell you about what matters to me and what I'm up to. You know, I too am a pioneer in this way, for example. So now you get a chance to see me a little bit. And
And
you're
in
going
a
to,
descriptive way that would match the scenario and potentially some interests of the person on the other side, right? So
yes,
if they are the pioneer, then I too am. I can see how that is, like finding that common ground.
absolutely. And it can be, you don't have to have the same thing, but you are mirroring to them to say, look, I see you. Now you see me and you're talking about what matters to you. For example, with my book, I can say, look, you know that I'm a longtime leadership communications coach. And the goal of my book is to help 1 million women ask for more and get it and use asking as a success strategy. This has been integral social justice infused into all that I work, all the work that I do, whether implicit or explicit, is showing up in this book. And if it matters to you to advance and accelerate women in financial services, we kind of live in the same zone. Do you see what I'm doing
Yeah,
there?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I see you see me now. And because of that, this is where you talk about the intersections between what matters to them and what you're up to. And that sets up your ask.
Okay.
So
Okay.
for example, I remember
Yeah.
when I first launched Ask Like an Auctioneer, it was just literally a workshop and a keynote. And I workshopped the content until it was so clear what needed to be that writing the book was just writing it down. So I reached out, this is really tiny, but I reached out to an executive in my network who had responded to newsletter that I had put out. I do a monthly newsletter called The Shift. And she was like, hey, this is really cool. Ask Like an Auctioneer thing is so wild. I sent her a note separately and I was like, hey, her name's Sylvie. Hey, Sylvie. I know as a woman executive in your organization, you want to leave a legacy of elevating and accelerating women, particularly in the IT space, because women are deeply underrepresented there. I know that this is something that I've seen you work on over the last 15 years that I've known you. You've created all kinds of traction around that, et cetera. I see you. And I was like, here's the thing. I just launched this project called Ask Like an Auctioneer with a goal to help 1 million women ask for more and get it and use asking as a success strategy. My ambition is to help amplify and accelerate women across industries. And because of that, this might be a great choice to bring as your next executive sponsored workshop for your women's circles. Because
Yours truly.
when I bring my workshops to your event, you are actually advancing your own personal mission to accelerate and elevate women in your industry. Do you see what I did? It's
Oh, yeah.
just,
You
I
packaged
see
it
you.
up in a sweet little bow. I mean, how could she say no to that?
And she didn't.
She
She said yes.
she didn't. She said yes. You always have a yes. But what you have a phrase, and I think it's interesting. It's this freak out zone. And like, boy, tell me about that because I read that and it's like, when you are mentoring someone through that freak out zone and male, female, whoever it is, I mean, where did you coin that and how are you moving people past the freak out part of this?
So, what you're referring to is something I call the zone of freaking out, or the ZOFO is the shorthand for it.
ZOFO.
Yeah, the
Yes. Yes.
ZOFO.
I love it.
So, when I asked myself, okay, wow, I don't want to teach people how to be auctioneers. I just want them to ask like auctioneers. And I was like, what does that mean? Oh, that means going for a no, getting a no, and then landing on something that's just a click beneath that. It means not designing our asks based on the most common question, which is, what do I think I can get? And so I was like, okay, but why don't we ask for more than we're pretty sure we can get? And the answer was because everything that is above a mostly guaranteed yes lives in a place I like to call the zone of freaking out. It makes us freak out. When we say, I want to ask for a 40% raise instead of a 20% raise, that 40% feels like, who do I think I am? It's a who do I think I am moment. It makes us freak out a little bit. Maybe folks who are listening right now, maybe you're a freelance writer and you're like, I've been writing for 80 bucks an hour for 10 years and it's time to raise my rate to 120. And it freaks you out to even say that out loud. So the
Yeah.
zone of freaking out is also, though, the zone of potential. And this is one way we can reframe it to recognize that when we make the asks that are so big that we have no idea about what they might say.
Right.
We might get a yes even to that bigger ask and surprise ourselves. And then that way, the zone of freaking out is where all the potential is. It's
Mm.
where, when we're in it, we challenge our assumptions about what's possible.
And you make it more comfortable when you say that, right? Because I know that once I get to that zone, that everything that is on the other side of it is going to be, I'm already at no. I always think like that. I'm already at no right now if I don't ask. And so I would feel more comfortable using this method because it's more than I had before. It pushes me out of my zone. And I think why not? Right. And so just why not ask?
I get notes from women who are like, I just made a ZOFO ask and my skin is on fire. Like literally, people are not actually more comfortable. The idea is it's more possible. When you think of it this way, it's more possible to go ahead and push send. It's more possible to go ahead and make the request. It's more possible to think bigger. And the two of my favorite ideas that I learned from auctioneering that makes it more possible to make the kind of ask where you have no guarantee, you can't even guess the guarantee. I'm saying possible. Maybe it is more comfortable for some folks, but for some other folks, I notice also that the zone of freaking out grows with us. Like what felt like a big ask 10 years ago to us feels like
Right.
table stakes now.
And I think when I say like it's the possibility, I think that it excites me. I think that's where I would find the comfort in it, as opposed to, I mean, it's certainly not comfortable, right? Especially getting out of your zone, but I would find a little bit like enough to
Yes,
get me through that transaction,
exactly.
or that conversation, not transaction. But I would find enough of the realm of possibility in there. So I like the hope that you're infusing in this.
That's beautiful. The idea that there's some hope, like let's throw a rock in the pond and see what happens. So if people listening right now are like, this is the week I'm asking my boss for a raise, or this is the week I'm going to go for that promotion, or this is the week I'm going to send my first $1 million proposal, and you feel yourself in the zone of freaking out, here are two ideas that might help you do exactly what you're talking about to find the hope in that ask and to make yourself do it. Can I share those?
Please, please, please.
Number one is that people are irrational. And if you don't like that, their rationale for what they might say yes or no to is not your rationale for what you would say yes or no to. I have an old friend who would say, like, oh, yeah, just don't shop from your own wallet. Because
That's right.
that $1 million project that you're sending out as a proposal might feel like you want to throw up in the trash can next to your desk when you push send. But for somebody else, $1 million is like,
No big deal. It's like sales 101, right?
correct. So, and I learned this doing auctioneering over and over again because things never, ever, 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 ever sold for what we thought they would.
Really?
I sold a one-night camping trip, and I tell the story in my TEDx, a one-night camping trip at auction for $55,000.
Yeah.
And we doubled it.
Didn't
We doubled
start?
it.
Yeah. I was about to say you doubled it. Okay. Lower number. I mean, when you see that happen, I mean, that just is proof of your concept, right? Like it's happening in front of you. You never thought it would sell for this much.
And it did. And I would never pay that. meaning my rationale for what I'd say yes or no to is not theirs. At the same time, I had that same year, I sold what was supposed to be a $10,000 daguerreotype, is like a certain kind of photograph, and it sold for like 4,500. So it can go both ways. Like we don't know. We have no idea what somebody will say yes or no to. Of course, we want to ballpark it. We want to do our research. We want to understand what zone we're in, et cetera. But in the end, you have no idea. So that's one. The other one is to remember that the big asks we make, we don't have to take the answers personally. And I learned that in all the auctioneering I've done, that price is a measure of value, not worth.
Mm,
Sounds like a semantics slicing, and maybe it is, but it's useful because price, or what somebody will pay for that daguerreotype or that camping trip, is a way to see what they value and how they value it, not a way to define my own worth or worthiness as the seller.
I think that's a really important reminder because if you're tying it to your self worth or to your own value, I can't imagine it's even more difficult to ask again and subsequently because you've just capped yourself, right? If you
Well,
take
you
that too personally.
absolutely, and you've also loaded up the answer you get with so much meaning that it's going to force you
Yeah.
to make it a little smaller because getting a no is just too painful. So
And who wants to know? Exactly. I was to say, who wants to know after you just heard the low value on yourself, right? It's
the whole
no one wants that.
no, and the whole thing is that in our culture right now, everyone says like, get paid what you're worth. And I totally want you to get paid what you're worth, but your worth and worthiness are like, it's irrelevant. It's not, that's not up for negotiation. That's like priceless. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. I do.
Okay, so sometimes, I work a lot with every quarter, for example, I do a speaking engagement at a low bono rate for a nonprofit that I work with. That is going to be a 4-figure engagement. But my regular commercial speaking rates are a 5-figure engagement. So what am I worth?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, well, neither of those, right? You're worth more. You're worth what you set. But
Infinite.
to your point, infinite. Yes. I mean, but to your
I don't
point,
even
it's
say that.
like
I don't even think that I'm worth what I set, because what my price rates don't are not a commentary on my worth or worthiness, period. It's about
that's right.
what those each audiences value, and that value is super contextual. So,
I love that. Those are powerful reminders, Dia. You touched earlier on in our discussion on a mentor that you had that you really had no right of asking to work with this person. Can you share this story about one of your mentors and what they've meant to you and how they've helped you along the way?
well, that early mentor, our relationship has changed over the years, and I have outgrown that mentorship. And I think it's one thing is important to recognize that it's okay to outgrow mentors and find new ones that meet you where you are now.
Right?
The ask I made of him was basically, will you teach me? And he did do that. But importantly, he also saw me, you know, he saw me. And I think it's important for us to find mentors that not only have the right quote unquote information for us, but also see us and see the potential in us that we sometimes can't see ourselves. And so that was what made that mentorship relationship so meaningful to me.
How did you know you outgrew the mentor relationship? Do you mind sharing about how, and maybe not even this example, maybe any other example that you might have had along the way? But I think that's a powerful statement because often we may not want to admit that to ourselves.
I don't know that this is the first time I'm reflecting on that. Let me see. So I would say there can be a power dynamic in a mentor relationship where we might perceive that the mentor has a lot of the power and we have a little bit of the power.
Okay.
Not to say that it's a competition, et cetera, but you're looking for somebody who has wisdom, knowledge, and the ability to draw the best parts of you out and forward. Okay. Meaning they see something you don't see. They're the one that has the flashlight,
Right. And more than you at this point. So just because even just
potentially.
holding a flashlight. Yeah. That's how
Correct.
you're feeling.
And
Hmm.
so recognizing, and that's a wonderful man, when you find those people who have the flashlight, you're like, can I just be around you? Can I
Yes.
just, like, I want to hear all the things, I want to have you on speed dial. But there's a moment where we might notice that, oh, they don't have the flashlight anymore. I have the flashlight.
Ah. Isn't that beautiful?
And maybe that doesn't mean that the relationship's over, but maybe the dynamic, the mentorness of that relationship has transmuted into a peer to peer friendship.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think because many times we revere so often and so closely that it's sometimes hard to step back and then also see them. And I think, your point, you want someone to see you, but we have to do the same for those people who have spent time with us and see us and give to us and help. And so I think that there's something to that, isn't there, Dia? Because it's if you saw this person or you see that other people around you as well, and it's nothing wrong with them or they haven't changed or anything. It's not an insult, right? It's just you put your wings on and you now have your flashlight shining elsewhere.
100%. And I think there's also, I start to notice when maybe in a mentoring relationship, they're asking questions of me or making assessments of where I am in my journey that have dissonance in them for me. I recognize it like, oh, that's who I was 5 years ago. But maybe you're not seeing anymore what I am now, you know,
Yeah.
and what I need now.
So, on that note, if you're speaking to someone who is looking for a mentor to help in a certain area, for example, what should they be looking for in that person? I mean, how do you suggest women or get out there and really be open to this concept and ask for the relationship and the time?
Well, I think there's two things. One is like, you don't always have to ask for mentoring. They could be mentoring you just because there are people that are mentors of us that we've never met. They mentor us from a distance. That's one. Two is I think we have to be really clear on what we're looking for in the mentors that we're seeking, that the sort of informal cabinet of folks that work as advisors and mentors for us. Like right now, for example, I'm 50 years old. My next 10 years, the theme of this next 10 years is what I want to think of as ownership. That means I want to be on cap tables. I want to get into angel investing. I want to think about ownership, IP ownership, but also paper ownership. And so I know that I'm actively looking for mentors who are even my same age. Mentors don't always have to be older to be wiser.
Not at all.
Okay. So we have to
Not at all.
remember, yeah. So I'm thinking about what does my new bench need to look like for me to lean into and grow ownership over this next decade for me. And so I'm looking for specifically those profiles of women who have both been through, who own, who are investors and who are on those cap tables, have learned lessons and also are the coaching kind of mentor. So I'm already kind of curating in my mind what I'm looking for. And so when it comes across my awareness, I can see it. Problem that, that thing, I mean, I've had two kids. There's a thing that women have where they're pregnant and all of a sudden they look around, they're like, everybody's pregnant. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
they've always been. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. No, everybody's been just that pregnant. It's just now you are. So you see it everywhere. You're buying a Honda Civic and you're like, why is everyone driving a Honda Civic? I'm like, nope, this is the
And they're
same
all
number.
red. I've never seen that color
Exactly.
before. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is a really powerful tool, having that nice list, that sort of a list of attributes we're looking for in the mentors that we put on our own radar.
I think that's great advice. Often I find that the mentorship is, like you said, in these moments, as we call them mentor moments. And so it's just these small pieces of advice and the consulting advice. Like I like that because often we do meet people, but they might be in that same space that we want to align with. However, they are not always available, if you will, to participate in those conversations or coach or be a part of those conversations. So finding someone that is open and recognizing it is really great advice. What are you mentioned over the next 10 years, you see where your business is going and what area you want to work in and be committed to. What type of legacy do you see yourself leaving in this industry of asking and communication and the work you've been doing, Dia?
I mean, look, I want people that work with me to walk away committed to the notion that they are their most powerful when they speak from who they actually are and getting familiar with who they are so they can do that. And secondly, the mission of my book is to help a million women ask for more and get it, put more decision making power and money in the hands of women so we can change everything for all of us. So if those two things happen, even just a little bit, I'm going to feel pretty good.
As you should, as you should. And everyone listening will be linking your TEDx speech. How incredible was that, by the way, to get that phone call to be a part of the TED speaking platform? Was that just a wow?
Yeah, it was wonderful. And I did it in my hometown, which is not where I live now, interestingly. And the TED editorial team selected it as a TED editor's pick. So that felt like a feather in my cap as well. It was really nice. And you should know that we have set up a special, along with thank you for linking that, but also for the question around how do I design a strategic ask, we've put together a landing page for your listeners that has a link to the 6-step framework to develop a powerful ask. And if folks go to diabondi.com/working women, you're going to find that resource there for you. It's a free download. And of six, and now that you have the language of the ZOFO, you'll be able to use those 6 steps really easily to put on your own radar what you're looking for so that when the ask is a possibility in front of you, you can recognize that potential and go ahead and make that ask.
Great takeaways. Very, very thoughtful of you as well for our audience. So I really appreciate the idea.
You bet.
Before I let you go, you have to share your mentor moment with our listeners. It's the one piece of advice that we leave the episode with and something that they might take away and share with others.
I would say let your dreams be known by the people around you that you trust. We can't help you make your dreams come true if you don't tell us what they are.
And if you don't trust anyone around you, that's a whole nother problem, isn't it?
That's another podcast is what that is.
It's a whole other problem. That's so funny. Okay, Dina, we ask all of our guests to text a friend, and how would that friend describe you? What wonderful things would that friend say about you in the text?
So
Who responded?
I did. So my good friend Maya responded, and it is she said, "Do I just have to give you one?" Because she gave me like a lot, so I'll just pick one. Which is it's hard to breathe it in, isn't it? When you get these
Yes, it
responses
is.
from folks.
It
She
is.
said, "Brilliant, specific, and excavating." So there it is,
Excavating. Ooh, that's a new one.
right?
I like that one.
That's a nice little exercise.
Dia, thank you so much for joining us on Working Women Mentor. Everything will be linked in our episode. Your advice today has been incredible. Ask like an auctioneer. Everyone buy the book. Let's help you meet this goal of 1 million women or more.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Dia, thanks for your time today.
Before you go, a huge thank you for being a part of this episode. I hope it left you with a spark of inspiration. And if you haven't already, hit that follow button and subscribe button to stay connected. Now is a great time. Your reviews are the heartbeat of our podcast. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, a review would really mean the world to us. Let's keep this conversation going as well on Instagram at Rainy Alphers. Visit us at rainyalphers.com for all episode show notes and also to express your interest to be a guest. Please sign up. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I'll see you back on Working Women Mentor.